What is up, Lighthouse Middle School? How you guys doing? Hope you guys are having a fantastic Wednesday. It is, if my calendar is right, the last Wednesday in February. It's kind of crazy. This year is flying by. Spring break is just around the corner, and we've got a couple things for you over spring break. If you're not going anywhere and you're looking for some fun things to do during spring break, we've got two events that'll be happening. First off, on the first Friday of spring break. So if I remember correctly, you guys have like Wednesday and Thursday are early out, and then Friday I think you don't have any school. So on that Friday, March 13th, we will have our family game night, which is hosted here at the church. We provide just a bunch of snacks and drinks and all that stuff, and I bring like basically every single game that I own, and you can bring games that you have if you'd like, and we set up some tables and we play some games in the foyer. And this is for your whole family. This is for your mom and your dad, your grandma, grandpa, brothers, sisters, cousins, and it's just a fun way to start off spring break, just playing some games, having some fun with one another, and we host it here at the church. And then kind of a similar sort of thing, that Sunday, so Friday, March 13th, Sunday, March 15th, 2 days later, we'll be hosting a Mario Super Smash tournament. This will be the Switch Super Smash, and because that's what I have, that's the console I have, and we'll do a tournament. We'll do a bunch of 1v1s, figure out who is the best Super Smash player. And this is just another opportunity to have a lot of fun. It actually is going to be at Shelby and I's house. We live in Carlisle, and we'd love for you to come. If video games aren't your thing, which is totally fair, Shelby will have some other sort of fun alternative, or you can just come and watch and hang out. That could be fun too. And bring a snack to share, and we will play some Super Smash, and it's going to be a great time. So those are some fun spring break things to do if you're not going anywhere, if you're looking for some ways to spend your spring break. And then we've got two QR codes that you can scan. The one's on the screen right now, also on your note sheets. This is for our next Q&A, which will be next week, actually. And this is on the afterlife. So heaven or hell, what happens after we die? What questions you guys have about that? You can scan that QR code. And then the other one is for some devotionals based off of our topic this month, which has been about worship. It's been called Wonder. And if you've read it, or if the lessons have been interesting and you want to dive in a little bit deeper on this topic, there's some QR codes. Or the QR code is there. You can scan it and it'll take you to some devotionals. And you can read a little bit more. You can hear some more scripture about what we've been talking about. You can kind of let it continue to shape how you think about this topic of worship, which is a response to all-encompassing greatness of God. And that's what we're going to be talking about in our lesson. So we're going to hop into that right now. We've been exploring some of the world's wonders as we think about worship and how to make it a bigger part of our lives. We've talked about Mount Everest, we've talked about Victoria Falls, and today we are looking at the Great Barrier Reef. And the Great Barrier Reef is the largest reef system in the world. It's made of almost 3,000 individual coral reefs in the northwest region of Australia. This reef system is so large you can see it from space. It is truly a wonder of our world. And not only is it amazing to see and experience, but it's home to many different types of plants and animals. It's a really important part of the local environment, the environment of the ocean. But you may know this, there's a bit of a problem. Over half of the Great Barrier Reef has actually died since 1995 in just 30 years. Rising water temperatures have caused the coral to bleach, making it actually uninhabitable for many of the plants and animals that used to live there. Thankfully, the local government and conservationists around the world have a plan. They are trying to save the reef. It's going to take time and a lot of work, but there's hope that one day the reef can return to its past glory. And restoring a broken system like a coral reef takes time, resources, and resilience. People have to be willing to put the work in, even when it's tough or feels like a lost cause. They have to be resilient. The scientists and conservationists working around the clock to save the Great Barrier Reef are just that. They are resilient. They're willing to hold on for as long as they need. They're going to grind away and keep showing up and try and save this thing that matters to them and to our world. They see the bigger picture, and they want to restore the Great Barrier Reef to its complete glory, the way that it was and should be. And maybe you can relate to that feeling of hoping for restoration after a difficult time. Maybe you've seen people you care about go through a hard time that you wish they didn't have to go through. In those moments, you might want to see things restored to exactly how they were before. And I'm curious if there's been something that you've needed to heal from. So I got a couple of examples here. Have you ever had to find healing from a physical injury? I know I certainly have. Have you ever had to find healing from a relationship? Your relationship was broken and it kind of broke you on the inside a little bit. Maybe you had to find a way to heal a meaningful object that you had broken. You had to pay for it, find a way to put it back together. Maybe you need healing from a memory, something that happened in your past that comes up in your mind kind of regularly. And we long for healing from broken situations and those that need mending. Maybe the potential in our minds doesn't actually live up to reality. Thankfully, restoration through resilience is a possibility. It's even a promise that God makes. When we experience damage or brokenness, we can look to God for help. And this month, we've been turning to the book of Psalms to help us understand worship. The way we've defined worship is a response to God's all-encompassing greatness, which certainly includes singing like we do on Sunday mornings, but reaches into every area of our lives. These poems and songs help us explore our relationship with God through the highs and the lows. So we're going to read Psalm 69, verses 13 through 18. This is on page 285. So look for the big number 69 and then follow it all the way down to the small number of 13. We'll read to 18. But it says, "But I keep praying to you, Lord, hoping this time you will show me favor. In your unfailing love, O God, answer my prayer with your sure salvation. Rescue me from the mud. Don't let me sink any deeper. Save me from those who hate me and pull me from these deep waters. Don't let the floods overwhelm me, or the deep waters swallow me, or the pit of death devour me. Answer my prayers, O Lord, for your unfailing love is wonderful. Take care of me, for your mercy is so plentiful. Don't hide from your servant. Answer me quickly, for I am in deep trouble. Come and redeem me and free me from my enemies." Now that's some pretty extreme language there, but maybe you can relate to that. There's been times in my life where I can. There's been times where I've wanted God to rescue me. And I'm sure that feeling is probably pretty universal. Of course, there's a lot of good things that happen in our lives, but have you noticed how easy it is to tend to focus on just the most challenging things going on over everything else? And in the psalm, we get a great example of how we can respond when we're in the middle of a hurtful experience. We can turn to God. This psalmist knew what was possible, what was waiting for them on the other side of the challenge. Even though it hurt, they believed God would help them get through it. The author of this psalm chose to worship and write these words to inspire future generations. When relationships or situations are broken or not quite right, we can look to God for help, guidance, and restoration. And this type of prayer shows someone who has a relationship with God, knows that change can come in a different way than we might initially expect. The psalmist trusted in God to lead and protect them in this dark moment. They saw life on the other side and knew there was more beyond what they were experiencing. They chose to be honest about what they needed and hoped for God's restoration. And those words can help us recover from difficult circumstances. They can help us to be resilient. They remind us that God can heal no matter what we're facing. And I bet a lot of us have prayed prayers that maybe aren't use those exact kinds of words, but they are coming from a similar place. We all need healing. And that can happen in all kinds of ways. You might have a broken heart and you feel like you can't quite put it back together. Maybe you've experienced some conflict with your best friend and you're wondering if life is ever going to feel the same again. Maybe you made a sinful decision, and that's making you question what you thought to be true about yourself. And the way we ask for healing will depend on the things that we need in that moment. Whether we're experiencing a broken heart or broken idea of who we are, we trust that God can restore anything that we need. In the same way that we long for healing now, people longed for healing during Jesus' time. It's this story in the Gospel of Luke about a woman who is healed by Jesus in a little bit of an unexpected way. This is on page 514. This is Luke chapter 13, and we'll read verses 10 through 17. It says, "One Sabbath day, as Jesus was teaching in a synagogue, he saw a woman who had been crippled by an evil spirit. She'd been bent double for 18 years and was unable to stand up straight. When Jesus saw her, he called her over and said, 'Dear woman, you are healed of your sickness.' And he touched her, and instantly she could stand straight. How she praised God, how she worshipped. But the leader in charge of the synagogue was indignant that Jesus had healed her on the Sabbath day. 'There are 6 days of the week for working,' he said to the crowd. 'Come on those days to be healed, not on the Sabbath.' But Jesus replied, 'You hypocrites! Each of you works on the Sabbath day. Don't you untie your ox or donkey from its stall on the Sabbath and lead it out for water? This dear woman, a daughter of Abraham, has been held in bondage by Satan for 18 years. Isn't it right that she be released even on the Sabbath?' This shamed his enemies, but all the people rejoiced at the wonderful things that he had done." So Jesus is teaching, and he notices this woman. She has this condition. It's kept her bent over and unable to stand up straight. And that affected so many parts of her life, including her relationships. The common thought at that time is that people with these types of ailments, injuries, or disabilities, they must have done something to deserve it, or maybe their parents did something to deserve it. So people who saw her may have judged her from a distance. But when Jesus saw her, he spoke a few words to her, and suddenly she's healed. 18 years of chronic pain dissolved away because of Jesus. And her response, which is right and appropriate, was to worship, to give God praise and thanks. The second she recognized that Jesus had healed her, she started to worship God because of what had happened. But, as we read, not everyone was excited. While she celebrated this change in her life, the religious leaders were upset with Jesus. And they accused Jesus of violating the Sabbath, a special day when no one was supposed to work, a day for rest. They couldn't wrap their heads around the way that Jesus healed this woman. They expected God to stick to kind of their understanding of those rules and expectations. And when that didn't happen, they looked for this reason, any reason, to just discredit Jesus. And instead of worshiping in response to this incredible experience of God's power and kindness, they questioned and they criticized Jesus' work. They were all in the same room looking at the same wonder, but only some chose to respond in worship. And when we ask God to heal us, it can happen in unexpected ways. There's a tendency to think of healing as an immediate fix and cure, imagining it happening as it did for the woman in today's story. And that happens sometimes. We pray for something and it happens right away, but that's not always the case. Sometimes God heals in different ways, and I would say most often, healing takes time. While we tend to focus on the incredible stories of God healing physical ailments, the healing God promises goes deeper. It's spiritual and emotional healing too. We need healing from the sin that we do and the sin that is done to us, that is available to us through Jesus' life, death, and resurrection. But that type of healing doesn't happen overnight. It sometimes can take a really long time. As we grow closer to God, we're invited to heal in some of these unexpected ways. His healing is ongoing. It's not a one-time deal. And actually, by building habits that move us closer to God and make us more like Jesus, we can experience this healing, the kind that only God can provide. He gives us a chance to experience healing well beyond what we could have hoped for or imagined. And all that comes through faith in Jesus, through trust in his life. Whatever healing we experience from God, physical, emotional, and most importantly, spiritual, we can respond with worship and praise, knowing that God makes the impossible possible. Like the woman Jesus healed, or the psalmist who experienced God's restoration, we can ask God to heal us. We can worship in the meantime. We worship because we know he can heal. And what do you do if you need healing? How do you respond if there's brokenness around you? Here's just like some things you can think about to worship in maybe moments of hurt when you are looking for healing. And the first thing that we can do is move closer to Jesus. The woman that Jesus healed was near him. He reached out and was able to touch her and heal her. She did her best to come close to God and was committed to growing that relationship despite her pain and the barriers that she experienced. And when we're in pain or need healing, it's natural to want to sometimes move away and try and fix matters on our own. But we can do differently. We can take steps closer to Jesus through prayer, studying scripture, reevaluating our habits and our priorities. When you need healing, we want to move closer to Jesus, not away from him. He is able to deal gently with us. You can call out for help. Asking for help can seem awkward or tough sometimes. I know that's true for me. But healing can be done in community. There are people around you who want to see you thrive and stay resilient through pain. They want to see you restored and make great comebacks. Pray and ask God to help heal you, and look to the people around you for strength. Let them be reminders of God's presence and love in your life as you maybe move through a longer process of healing. Next, we want to trust God even when it doesn't totally make sense, because sometimes we might pray and maybe it's not happening how we want it to happen or how we expected. Sometimes that may make us want to give up or turn our backs on God, like how some people watched Jesus heal and they chose to respond by criticizing or not believing. But it takes strength to give God even more of our trust in those times. We can admit that we don't understand and that we can't see the end of a difficult situation. We can hold our expectations, the things that we want, loosely and trust God that he's going to help us grow, even if it doesn't totally make sense to us in that moment. And like the psalmist and the woman Jesus healed, worship can be kind of our first response to healing. Worship when a relationship is healed. Worship when an injury is restored. Worship when your sin is forgiven. Worship when you find hope again. Worship any time that you experience God's healing. And as we wrap up this series, I hope you've discovered something about worship. It's more than singing songs or lifting our hands. That's certainly part of it. But it is a response to the all-encompassing greatness of God. When we worship, we can align ourselves with God's character and plan for the world. Plus, worship is a way for us to move closer to God as we continue to experience the ongoing healing that's offered to us in Jesus. We worship because God is holy, because God is faithful, like we talked about last week, and we worship because God can heal. That's what I got for you guys this evening. We're going to switch it over to small groups. Next week, like I said, we're going to be at a large group at the church. So wherever you are, don't go there. Come to the church. And I love you guys, and I'll see you then.